Hey guys, Charlie Murphy here. Thank you for choosing my video. Today we're playing a session of 2-5 no limit, 6 max regular tables on Ignition. Get a 3x open from a short stack player in the cutoff. We can defend the big blind for a call with ace deuce suited. Lower left hand table will raise middle position with ace king suited using a 21% range. Lower right hand table will be checking range to the pre-flop raiser. Against that larger sizing, we're not going to get too aggressive with our floats or our bluffs, especially against a presumed recreational player playing on a half stack. Lower left-hand table, 3x open, blind on blind, 7-3 offsuit is a fine hand to go ahead and fold, even blind on blind. Get a min raise from the button in the upper left-hand table. We can defend for a call with queen 9 offsuit. Lower right-hand table, couple recreational players limp. I will complete the small blind with jack 4 suited. And be checking range out of the small blind. Lower left-hand table, jack 8 suited a little bit too wide or loose to be 3-betting the button open. And we get a half pot bet here, multi-way. I can check call at once, but I'm not too inclined to believe that this guy is inherently weak, given that we were multi-way. He checks back the turn, however, so I'm going to go ahead and turn my hand into a bluff. Pull them off ace high, mid-pocket pairs that c-bet the flop for some reason. Lower left-hand table, raise queen 10 first in from the cutoff using a 28% range. Big blind calls, then checks to me on 9-7-4 two-tone, so I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. And we get check raised. I would float that if I had some backdoor draws here. It's probably a little too speculative to float here, but that small check raise size, I do want to be floating a lot. If I had like a queen of spades, even the 10 of spades, I think I would continue. I think it's okay to fold this one. Upper right-hand table, middle position opens, button 3 bets. I'm in the big blind with ace-jack, so this is going to be a cold 4-bet or fold situation. I think we can go ahead and actually put this into the cold 4-bet range. Be stacking off queens plus ace king there, and I've got some other hands not quite good enough to call off with in the re-raise fold range. Hands like jacks, maybe tens, ace queen offsuit, and suited Broadway type cards. Lower left-hand table, we 3-bet the button open from the big blind with ace-king using about a 14% 3-bet range. He calls me. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet on the queen 10-4 rainbow flop. Now, I get raised. I don't put a lot of stock in this raise right here. Regs don't really balance that well. Fish tend to call off too lightly, but here the regs tend to raise fold a bit too much. I've also got 2 overcards, a gut shot, and blockers to ace-queen, ace-king, so I think this is a very clear just jam all in over the top situation. Ran into ace-queen, which is unfortunate, but I stand by my play. Lower left-hand table, raise the button first in with Jack 10 suited using a 44% range. Lower left-hand table, raise middle position with Ace 10 suited using a 21% range. Same situation, upper right-hand table with the pocket fives. Get called by the big blind on the 8-9-4 two-tone flop. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. And barrel on a variety of turn cards, 10s, jacks, aces, 7s, some of the gut shot type cards as well. Here we get the 5. My bluffs can be hands like Jack 10, Queen Jack, spade draws. I don't have too much. I guess I got a little bit of like hands like King 7, Ace 7, King 6, Ace 6. That can also be some gut shot bluffs. But I'll go ahead and check back the Ace 10. Get a limp, a raise, a 3-bet. I think I just need to fold the Ace Queen. I don't know that I can really have a. I don't really know that I can have a 4-bet small range here. And even if I can, I think Ace Queen is probably a bit too loose to put in it. I'll try to showdown the Ace High rather than try to bluff them off a pair. My weaker air I would turn into a bluff on that river. The Ace High I'll take my chances with. And I would not have gotten that cold 4-bet bluff through with the Ace Queen there against a couple combos of Ace King. Almost certainly not. So it's, in a results-oriented way of thinking, it was probably good I opted not to go ahead and put that bluff in. It was a pretty close spot, though. Lower right-hand table, a raise King 8 offsuit on the button, get called by a recreational player in the big blind who checks to me on 9-7-4 two-tone. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. You can barrel on some turn cards. The deuce of spades is not one of them. Here I'd be barreling for a half pot size with big naked aces, made flushes, sets, 2-pair, overpair type hands, good 9x, ace 9, king 9, queen 9 type hands. Also can bluff open-ended straight draws, hands like 6-8, 8-10 that don't even have a spade. King 8, I think we'll just go ahead and check back and see what I can make of it on the river. I'll be bluffing on the river here for sure. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and try to bluff raise that spot also. The small bet and that 4-flush texture is a great indication to bluff raise. Even against fish, you can bluff raise them when they're out of position using that real small sizing. Lower right-hand table, I'll raise the deuces in the cutoff using a 28% range. Get called by a recreational player in the small blind, then jammed on for 51 blinds from the big blind, so I can go ahead and fold my deuces. But if I had any doubt that I'm at the right table, we can certainly put that out of our head right now, given we've got a player doing those kind of things. Open middle position and lower right-hand table with Jack 9 suited using a 21% range. Called by a couple players in position, both of whom seem to be recreational players. And the big blind comes along as well. On the Jack 8-3 two-tone board here, I've got a couple of guys in position, so I'm just going to go ahead and check my range, under rep my Jack. Recreational player bets 20 into 50, bets about 40%. I'll just go ahead and check call with my marginal Jack. Allow him to keep bluffing off with his nonsense. Now he checks back the turn. River is the 3 of hearts, Trying to decide if there's more value in inducing a bluff or value betting. I think the fish tend to be a little bit under bluffy, so I'm going to go ahead and put in a value bet as opposed to checking to induce. I get quickly called down and his hand goes straight in the muck. It'll be interesting to see what it is he did that with. Probably a hand like ace-8, 9-8, but no need to guess when we can look. 8-9 offsuit. So he's getting himself in trouble with his pre-flop decision to play very marginal hands to a raise. Pretty slim pickings at most of the tables, but the lower right-hand table has several very enticing opponents. We do have at least one recreational player at the other two as well, looking to get that fourth table up to maximize my hands. This one doesn't look very promising either, but we'll give it a chance since I got stuck in the big blind here. Lower left-hand table, there's a min raise from the cutoff. I am in the button with king 3 offsuit, and even before the small blind goes ahead and 3 bets, I was just going to go ahead and fold that hand. No need to defend a hand as weak as king 3 offsuit, even against the min raise. Couple Rex limp on the upper left-hand or lower right-hand table rather. Small blind completes. I will check in with my jack 9. I'll be checking range out of the big blind here on the flop as well. Flop checks around. Turn is the king of hearts, putting a flush closer out there. I do have the jack of hearts in my hand. No one showed any interest in this pot as of yet, so I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't pick it up for a small bet. Planning to follow through on the river, though in this case, now that I make the 4 flush, I think I'll be doing that for value. I've got the third nuts, so it's a little bit thin to bet for pot, but I like using the pot size bet on these 4 straight 4 flush runouts, see if the recreational player doesn't just want to get sticky with the 8 of hearts or something like that. He had the queen of hearts, so I value cut myself, but I'm okay with that. If I'm not value cutting myself, I'm not value betting thin enough, so those things are going to happen from time to time. Also tells me if the river bricked out, as it's going to do, about 80% of the time, I'm going to pick up that pot with the bluff when I follow through on the river. So my overall strategy is good. I just happened to hit the draw that made a second best hand, but I think that's a very reasonable way to play that spot. Upper left-hand table, the cutoff opens for about 2.5x. I'm in the small blind, going to be playing 3-bet or fold, and 3-betting with about an 11% range, including my pocket 9s. Probably 3-bet something like 7s or better, ace, queen plus, king, queen, suited broadways, a couple wheel aces, a couple suited 9s. Get you in that 10 to 11% range. Folding everything else. Recreational player min raises the cutoff on the upper right-hand table. I will defend my big blind for a call with king 10 offsuit and check range on the flop. Checks back. Turn is the jack, so we have ace 7 deuce jack. Now there's a backdoor flush draw out there, which I don't have, but I do in fact have the gut shot. I'm going to be going ahead and jabbing at this pot small and following through on the river. Lower left-hand table, blind on blind, got a 3x open. Queen 9 offsuit's a fine hand to defend for a call in that spot. I get check 2 on the ace-7-5 board. I'm just going to go ahead and stab for half pot after he checks. With the logic being that the pool just does not defend their checking range very well, blind on blind, and check folds a bit too much. So I can get away with murder in the meantime until everyone adjusts and adapts. Blind on blind, lower left-hand table will raise ace-9 offsuit using a 45% range. Get called, and I will check range to the big blind on the king 6-5 two-tone flop. He checks back. I'm going to go ahead and start jabbing at that pot small. Planning to follow through on the river in most cases as well. Lower left right-hand table, I'll raise king-queen offsuit under the gun using an 18% range. Folds all around except for the big blind, who calls and checks to me on the jack 8-3 rainbow board, so I will go ahead and put in a small range bet. Can barrel on tens, queens, kings, to some extent nines and aces as well. Queens and kings give me a top pair, tens give me an open-ender, aces or nines give me some gut shots, particularly the ones that put a backdoor spade draw up there, which I block. I think I would barrel on. Upper right-hand table, raise king-queen under the gun, or cutoff rather, using a 28% range. Get called by the button, then squeezed by the big blind, and I'm just going to go ahead and get out of the way in this particular spot. Normally against a small blind, large size, say about a 4.5x 3-bet when I'm in the cutoff, I defend about 10%. Most of my pocket pairs that don't 4-bet, suited connectors down to 4-5 or 5-6, suited broadways, a couple wheel aces. Given I've got this other player in front of me here that's going to be able to either back jam or call and deny my equity and play the pot in position to me on the flop, I'm going to be a lot tighter. The suited connectors are probably going to go. The wheel aces are going to go. I probably 4-bet ace-king as opposed to flatted at that point. 4-bet a bit wider. Call a lot tighter. Call almost nothing on that spot. A few combos, but, jacks, 10s, 9s, 8s type hands, and a few suited broadways. Probably about it for the call range. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small check raise there against that small flop stab. He stabs small in position. He could have a set, but he could also have some marginal overpairs. Upper right-hand table, going to go ahead and put in the small range, but against a small blind with my trip kings. I think I want to go ahead and put in another barrel. Go about 3/4 a pot, about 100. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to check here and give him a chance to turn his whiff draws into bluffs, especially without having a heart in my hand. I don't block them. Go ahead and put in an overbet with my trip kings against this recreational player. He bets, I'll go ahead and check call. And I pick off the bluff draw, the whiff draw. Worked just like I hoped. It's nice when poker works out that way. Upper left-hand table, I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet here after I open the cutoff with ace-7 suited against the big blind. I do have the flush draw on 9-5-4 two-tone, the nut flush draw, in fact. Lower left-hand table, raise 9s under the gun using about an 18% range. I'm going to go ahead and check range multi-way on that monotone board. I'm going to go ahead and defend for a call with my nut flush draw here against that check raise. Lower right-hand table, I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet on Jack 9-7. Lower left-hand table, since I made that set, I'm going to go ahead and flat with my nines. It's a three flush and 4 straight board, so my set's not that strong, but it could become very strong if that board pairs. I'm going to go ahead and take my free river card when he checks after check raising the flop, and just dink the nuts, because that's the way things are going for me right now. And he goes ahead and he bets small. I'm going to go ahead and put in my raise. I could be bluff raising here, or I can be value raising. I think I've got to call and try to get the board to pair. And now against this lead from the recreational player, I mean, that's probably supposed to be a call. I just don't like these 4 straight runouts that much. You know, he's betting decently large, but I think it's still against a rec. We've got to go ahead and call this down. And against a weaker pair, it's good that he turned that into a bluff, actually. But not all players would find that, even though I do think he's a recreational player, and those guys don't necessarily find a way to turn their pairs into bluffs. Upper right-hand table, I jabbed the turn small after it checked around on that limped pot on the flop. With the gut shot and the overcard, I hit the ace, so we're still multi-way, so I'm going to again use a small size and just try to get some small thin value with my rivered top pair. Lower right-hand table, I'll raise King-6 suited from middle position using about a 21% range. Upper left-hand table, I raised Ace-10 suited under the gun, got called in position and by the big blind. I will go ahead and check range on the flop. Queen-Jack-3 rainbow. Turns the deuce of spades, putting a backdoor flush shot draw out there, which I don't have. I do, however, have a gut shot and an overcard. I'm going to go ahead and jab at that turn small and probably follow through on pretty much any river. Maybe not the 10. Maybe the 10 I would take my showdown on. Upper left-hand table, blind on blind, 3x open from a suspected recreational player, short stack type. 6-4 offsuit, a little bit too weak to defend, even against a standard regs, typical aggression tendencies here, blind on blind, and with the full stack. With a fishy player with less money behind him and probably a more passive approach to pre-flop play, I think 6-4 becomes even more clear of a fold at that point. Upper right-hand table, raise King-7 suited, first in from the cutoff, using a 28% range. Lower right-hand table, a recreational player has been very passive, no raises yet in 30 hands. He goes ahead and he opens under the gun for 3x. I'm a little worried that he could actually be a lot stronger than he otherwise should be. I don't think I can fold King-10 to a 3x open quite yet, though. I do want to be very cautious post-flop, however. And then against the cutoff 3x open on the upper right-hand table, I will 3-bet out of my big blind with a couple wheel aces, ace-5, ace-4 suited. So I'll go ahead and put in my 3-bet there. Against the continuation bet from this player who's been very loose passive pre-flop and is now raising pre-flop under the gun, I will just go ahead and check fold my king high with the overcards, even on a paired board. Lower left-hand table, I'll raise king 9 suited first in under the gun using an 18% range. When I get 3-bet by the middle position player and then the overcall by the recreational player on the button, I'm just going to go ahead and get out of the way. King 9 suited would be a very standard fold here, absent this overcall. With that player overcalling, however, I'm going to probably call more pocket pairs because they're giving me such a juiced up pot to jump in there to try to hit the set. But I'm going to be a bit tighter with my non-pocket pair, suited Broadway type hands. Be a bit more cautious with those and call a bit more liberally with the mid pairs looking to hit the set. Upper right-hand table, I'll raise the queen 10 from the cutoff. Upper right-hand table, raise ace-4 suited from middle position using a 21% range. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small range bet against the big blind on king 7-6 rainbow on the upper right-hand table. Mostly be checking the turn with this particular combo. Get a 2-point, not even quite a 2.5x, more like a 2.3x open there on the button. I've got 2-3 suited. I can go ahead and defend that for a call on the upper left-hand table. I'll go ahead and check back. The forward gives me some reason to semi-bluff, but I think I'd rather be doing it with 8-9, 9-10, 5x, heart draw type hands as my bluffs. I got bottom 2 pair. I'm going to go ahead and put in a check raise on the upper left-hand table. I get led into quickly for 2/3 pot by a reg type player. I'm going to go ahead and put in a bluff raise here. This spot's a little close, but I think it's defensible. It may not be massively profitable. I think it's still okay to do that. And we got through with it. Now he just goes ahead and jams all in over the top of me. I blocked the low 2 sets. It's unlikely he plays pocket 8s that way. I think I'm going to be pretty content to just go ahead and get this in. Should be more likely to be against some kind of draw or vulnerable overpair. And he's got ace-8, which is a massive overplay, but I'm here for it. Go ahead and give him a recreational player tag after that stunt, too. Thinking ace-8 should be just jammed over a flop check raise. Lower right-hand table, I'll raise the button with Jack 10 suited using a 44% range. Upper right-hand table, we get the cutoff opens 2.5x. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet out of the small blind with my ace-king suited, using about a 10-11% range there. Lower right-hand table, the recreational player, small blind player calls. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small range bet on 7-6-4. Upper left-hand table, I'll raise king 6 suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. I'll go ahead and check back. River is that jack there, which gives me a hand I can either bluff catch or value bet with, so that's a pretty good river. He checks. I'll go ahead and put in my value bet with my Jack X. I could also do this with all sorts of, air, ace high, or queen high, or worse type hands that were not part of my turn barreling range for whatever reason. Usually they didn't have enough equity or enough potential to make a strong hand. They play better in the check back line, but I can have my air there, and I can have my thinner value bets with second pair or third pair type hands. Weak kings that didn't bet the turn, etc., etc. Like we did our damage on the upper left-hand table, and it's just regs left, so we'll move along, look for greener pastures. Upper right-hand table is nothing special either. Probably need to replace that one as well. Raise under the gun, upper right-hand table with Jack 9 suited, using an 18% range. Lower right-hand table, raise King 8 from the button using a 44% range. Upper left-hand table, cutoff raises first in, 2.5x. I'll 3-bet from the small blind with ace-king offsuit using a 10 to 11% range. Upper right-hand table, cutoff raise for, or middle position raise first in, cutoff 3, but I can cold 4-bet or fold out of the big blind. Cold 4-bet to sack off with queens plus ace-king. Have a few other hands like ace-queen, ace-jack, suited versions, maybe king-queen, king-jack, pocket jacks, and ace-queen offsuit to raise and then fold. Here I got jammed on, so I'll fold the ace-jack. Upper right-hand table, blind on blind, I will raise the king-9 offsuit using about a 45% range. And I will check range to the big blind on the king 8-7 rainbow board. He quickly checks back. I'm going to start jabbing at that pot small out of position with my top pair, mostly following through on the river for value. Not the best river to do so, but I do think a mergey value bet is better than checking. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in and hope a hand like Jack 10 gets sticky. Upper left-hand table, raise pocket jacks first in from the cutoff. Lower left-hand table, recreational player limps, small blind completes. I check in the big blind with Jack 8. And the rec bets about 2/3. He bets 10 into 14. I'm going to be check raising him with my bottom 2, looking to have him get overly stuck on a small ace and just try to get some value out of that. Lousy turn card now. Queen 10, King Jack. You shouldn't really have Ace King, but King Jack and Queen 10 could certainly be out there. So I'm going to go ahead and check and slow down a bit. Wonderful river, however. I'm going to go ahead and overbet that now that I've got a full house. Hope some kind of ace gets sticky. If he got trappy with something on the turn, I just outdrew him. But also bet that smaller. But when you're against a rec with a real strong hand, and I'm not blocking the ace-x, I'm not blocking the straights. If he got cute and checked that back on the turn, I think the overbet's the way to go. Plus, sometimes he'll just get entirely too sticky with a marginal one-pair hand, regardless of removal properties. I like to try to get big value from big hands against suspected recreational players when that situation comes up, because it doesn't come up all the time. Upper right-hand table, raise king 9 suited first in from middle position using a 21% range. Upper left-hand table, raise queen 10 suited first in from under the gun using about an 18% range. It's a cold 4-bet or fold spot. Once again, king jack suited, probably good enough to slide into that 4-bet fold range here. Queens plus ace king is what I'm going to stack off with against a jam. Have hands like suited combos of ace queen, ace jack, king queen, king jack. Throw in pocket jacks and ace queen as well. Hands that have good removal properties to the continuing range pre-flop and also play well if they get flatted post-flop, can either make strong pairs or strong draws. But got jammed over again here by two players. In this particular spot, I'm obviously folding king-jack. I'm probably being a bit tighter and probably only going to fold, or probably can fold hands like queens and ace-king offsuit, really only going with kings plus ace-king suited. When the under-the-gun player rejams and the button also jams all in as well. Can be a bit tighter than I otherwise expected to be in that spot. But obviously I'm folding the king-jack against one jam, much less two. Lower left-hand table, raise queen-jack offsuit from middle position using a 21% range. And against the in-position 3-bet, I will just go ahead and quickly fold. Upper right-hand table, raise ace-9 suited, first in from the cutoff, using a 28% range. Got called by the big blind, who checks to me on the king 7-5 two-tone board. I will go ahead and put in a small range bet. Got check raised. Got some backdoor draws here. I think I can go ahead and float that. He shouldn't really have the best top pairs. I've also got that overcard. I'm going to go ahead and float this one. Lower left-hand table, raise ace-king first in from the button, using a roughly 44% range. Upper right-hand table, after the check raise, he bets about 20% of pot. I turn that top pair on that flush closing card. I'm not going to let him bet that small. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small raise. I was planning to bet about 40 or about 50% of pot myself. I'll go ahead and put in slightly small slightly small raise. Lower left-hand table, raise king 6 suited first in from the cutoff. Queen 6 suited rather, using about a 28% range. Get a roughly 2.5x or 2.25x open for middle position. I'll go ahead and 3-bet the cutoff with king-queen offsuit. And about a 10% range in that spot. And like 8s or 9s and better, suited broadways, ace-jack plus king-queen, and a couple of wheel aces. Lower right-hand table, I raised 4s in the cutoff, got called by the small blind on the 9-9 deuce flop rather. I'll go ahead and put in the small range bet. Upper left-hand table, raise queens first in from middle position, using about an 18% range. Got quickly check raised by the small blind. He could be doing that to protect some mid pairs that like 5s through 8s type hands actually, which give me a bit of pause to floating this. I think I can fold it, but it's pretty close. Upper left-hand table, I checked range with queens on the King-Jack-5 two-tone board to the in-position player. He mashes the pot button. I can't fold just for one bet with queens, so I will go ahead and check call. Turn is the 3 of hearts, not the best card for me as I don't have a heart in my hand. He, however, goes ahead and checks back. Now the question is there more merit in trying to value bet this guy or take the cheaper showdown? I think I actually run into King X more than Jack X here if I bet and get called. I'm just going to check it and not expect this guy's going to bluff me off all that much. Although against that half pot bet, I think I can probably go ahead and call that. Thinking about it for a little bit here. But that half pot bet just tends to be so bluffy. And the bet check bet line even more so as well. I think we can hero call here. Yeah, he was overvaluing a jack. I guess he was trying to get some thin value, which I don't hate. Let's see. Lower left-hand table, 2.5x open from the button. Can go ahead and defend some of these mid offsuit connectors like 8-9. I think there's probably more merit in checking the 5s here on the river and trying to check down for free than trying to get value from a 4. This turn call is a little bit questionable. Upper left-hand table, 2.5x open from the button. I will defend my big blind for a call with King 10 and check range. He checks back the 6 deuce deuce two-tone flop. Turn is the queen of spades, putting the second flush draw out there. I don't really have too much of this board, but I will go ahead and start jabbing that at small. Try to fold him off some ace high type stuff, maybe not for the first barrel, but often for the second. Can also peel a king or maybe even a 10 and value bet those. So it sounds like I'm going to be betting pretty much every river in this particular spot. When I get raised, however, I don't get to see the river and we'll never know. Upper right-hand table, recreational player limps blind on blind. I will go ahead and pop him up with something like my button open range, about 44%, including the king-jack offsuit. Upper left-hand table, I will raise button first in with queen-9 offsuit using a 44% range. And against that 3-bet, I can just go ahead and fold. Large size, over 5x. Slightly over 5x. Middle position, I'll open 8s on the lower left-hand table using a 21% range. a pretty healthy size 3-bet, almost 5x out of the small blind here. I'm in the middle position. The formation's not particularly loose. Typically, I would defend something like 7s plus my suited Broadway cards and Ace King for mostly for calls. A few hands for some 4-bets. He went a little bit bigger, so I'm going to be a little bit more snug. I think I'm going to fold 8s and 7s, continue 9s plus suited Broadways, and let some of those mid pairs drop out. Pretty close, though. A call is certainly defensible. Recreational player min raises blind on the upper right-hand table. I could see some argument for raising this up to get this in, but he's been so passive pre-flop, 4% raise, one hand raised over 24. I think we're going to be better off to peel, take a flop, and assess post-flop. He checks to me on the ace-6-3. I'm just going to go ahead and stab for half pot, mostly for equity denial against hands like Jack-10. Can get some value from some 6x and 3x type hands that are going into a check call line as well. Lower right-hand table, I'll raise blind on blind with ace-4 using about a 45% range. Same thing on the upper right-hand table with 10-6 suited blind on blind. I'm going to check fold ace-4 on the Jack-9-3 rainbow board, though, even against that small bet. Lower right-hand table, raise ace-8 suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. Upper left-hand table, raise blind on blind with 10-6 suited using a 45% range. Same situation, upper right-hand table with ace-6 offsuit blind on blind. Against the 3-bet over there with ace-6, I'll just go ahead and quickly fold. Checked range on the upper left-hand table on the queen-7-7 rainbow board, and against that 75% bet, I can just check fold my 10 high. Upper right-hand table, we'll raise ace-9 suited first in from the button using a 44% range. I had position on the rec, but the rec left, so I'm going to be moving along. There's nobody else on this table as an obvious fish. I will be range betting after the small blinds check to me on the queen-5 deuce two-tone flop. I get check raise, no real back doors to speak of. I will move along. I'll just pitch the hand and go on to the next one. Get a min raise, and then it doubles from 10 to 20 by a shorter stack recreational player on the button, and I'll just go ahead and fold my pocket fours at that point. Wouldn't have minded going three-way to the flop for that small bet, especially with a recreational player in the pot. But just isn't the way it played out. Interesting way to play 6-3 suited. This guy had 10-8 offsuit also, so perhaps he's opening a bit loose as well. Be opening that from the cutoff. That recreational player opens 3x from middle position. I'll go ahead and 3-bet him from the button with Queen Jack suited. Using about a 9% range here. Most of my suited Broadway is 9s plus, Ace Jack plus, King Queen, a couple of wheel aces. He calls. Interesting flop with the Ace-King-4 two-tone flop. I have the relevant suits. I have the nut flush draw as well as the gut shot to Broadway. Recreational player checks. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. And he goes ahead and min raises me. I'm, of course, not going anywhere with my massive draw. I don't see any reason to go ahead and jam back over the top of this, though. I just don't think he folds enough marginal one-pair hands. Oh, and I can perhaps outplay him on later streets as well. So I'll go ahead and just take my cheap odds to, cheap price to try to hit my draw on the turn. I can also have aces, kings, ace, king, or various good, aces like ace, king, or ace, queen, ace, 10 type stuff. And he bets 80 into about 230. I'm getting great odds to continue, so I'm going to come along again as well. Brick out, so I'll be folding if he bets, but jamming if he checks. Yeah, and against that, there's just not any room left to make a play. I'll just go ahead and fold my busted draw. Upper right-hand table, blind on blind. I open the pocket kings using the 45% range. I flop the full house, king 4-4. I'll go ahead and check range to the big blind. He checks back. Turn is an offsuit ace, completing the rainbow. I'm just going to go ahead and jab at that pot small. River is the jack. I think I want to go ahead and continue putting in value bets. I don't want to overbet since I blocked the king X that I'm trying to get the hero call me if I overbet. I also think 4X is going to raise me, especially if I use the smaller size. So I want to use the 2/3 type size. Hope to get called by a sticky 8, sticky mid pair, sticky ace high, or get some kind of bluff raise or 4X that value raises me. I'm not going to raise all my ace-X on the button in the upper right-hand table. Fold a couple of the worst offsuit combos. Ace-3 offsuit's pretty close, though. You could go either way with it. Lower right-hand table, I might fold a couple of the weakest queens, suited queens on the button. Probably raise queen 3 or better, but maybe fold queen deuce. Pretty close, though. Upper right-hand table, middle position opens 2.5x. I will 3-bet him from the cutoff with my ace-king, using about a 10% range here. 9s plus, ace-jack plus, king-queen. Suited broadways, ace-5, ace-4 suited. Lower right-hand table, I'll open ace-9 from the cutoff, using a 28% range. Recreational player min raises me from 1250 to 20, so I'm going to call pretty much everything. Upper right-hand table, going to go ahead and put in a small range bet after he checks to me on the queen 9-5 rainbow board. Interesting turn card, as I now block the backdoor flush draws to some extent. I also block ace-king, ace-queen. I think this is going to become a spot where I'm just going to go ahead and look to barrel off. Go about 75% a pot. I'm going to go a bit bigger. Put a lot of pressure on pocket 10s, pocket jacks, 9x, weak queens. I block the best queens. Got called twice. I mean, he could have a hand like 9s or 5s or even queens that he's trapping me with, but I just don't think that's a huge part of his range. I'm going to follow through with my plan here and barrel off. That triple barrel in a 3-bet pot when you're in position is also a line where you can get quite a few folds, so it's not a bad zone to funnel players into, especially when I've got overcards and good removal to the best queen X call down hands. Got him. Lower right-hand table, I'll raise Jack 10 from the cutoff using a 28% range. And we'll check range to the in-position recreational player caller on King 7-6 two-tone. He quickly checks back, so I'm going to go ahead and start stabbing. And I will follow through on that paired river as well, following through in pretty much every river, not surrendering my Jack high. Upper right-hand table, blind on blind, got king 7 offsuit. That's probably slightly looser than I would typically open. Really open king 8 or better, fold king 7 or worse. Pretty close, though. Lower left-hand table, we'll raise king queen suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. Upper right-hand table, raise king 5 suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. I get 3-bet by the big blind against my cutoff open on the lower left-hand table. You can go ahead and defend that with suited broadways, maybe like pocket 7s or better, ace king. Five-handed, I'll raise 10-8 suited under the gun on the lower right-hand table. Upper right-hand table, I'll raise king 6 suited from middle position using a 28% range. I'm sorry, 21% range. Against that large continuation bet on the 6-2-3, I will not float with my overcards and backdoor flush draw. I'll just go ahead and lay it down. Upper right-hand table, the big blind comes along. I'll go ahead and range bet small on the queen 10-4 rainbow board. Do have various cards I can barrel on, diamonds, jacks. Probably check back a king if I hit a king. Diamond, however, I'm going to start going after. That's going to be an overbet or check situation here on the upper right-hand table, and the king high flush draw is a great candidate to put in the barreling range. Upper right left-hand table, I checked range to 2 in-position recreational players on the flop. Going to go ahead and start jabbing small on that flush closing turn. That also makes a set for me. I need to continue following through. There's some merit to putting this into the overbet jam line as I block the straights. I think I'm probably better served by overbet jamming with ace king, however. I'm going to use the smaller size here with diamonds in my range, blocking his flush folds. He quickly folds, however, so I'm pretty happy about that. My small bet gets jammed on for $160 and then re-raised to 308. I think I have to go ahead and fold my set against these two guys on this flush possible board, unfortunately. And against a spazzy ace jack, and then the made nut flush. So one of those guys was a fool. The other one of those guys was in the stone cold nuts. Either way, I've got to fold out my threes without getting a chance to boat up. Lower left-hand table, we'll raise ace-9 suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. Ugh. Upper right-hand table, raise king 6 suited first in from the button using a 44% range. Lower left-hand table, raise Jack 9 suited under the gun using an 18% range. Or left-hand table, blind on blind. 7-4 suited's pretty close. I'm going to go ahead and fold that, but you could go either way with it. 9-4 suited should also be a fold, blind on blind. Unless you think the guy is a total nit and he's just going to let you rob him, in which case you can do whatever. It doesn't matter what your cards are. Get a 2.2x open from a middle position player. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet him on the button with my ace-king. I'm going to have, a 10% range or so. Something like 8s or 9s or better. Suited broadways, ace-jack plus king-queen, and the wheel aces, ace-5, ace-4. Not all of them, but a couple of them. Upper left-hand table, going to go ahead and raise the cutoff with kings using a 28% range. Lower left-hand table, the 3-bet got called. I get a king 6-3 rainbow flop. Going to go ahead and range bet that small. My pocket kings got called in 2 spots by the blinds. The small blind seems to be kind of a weak wreck. Get led into 10 into 35, and then the big blind calls. I'm going to go ahead and call at least once with the kings, not automatically giving either of these guys credit for an ace with the small sizing. But probably not going to put a ton of money into this pot either if they keep chucking more money in. He goes and he bets a quarter pot, 16. I mean, that could be all sorts of, stuff like 10x or draws. I've got to continue coming along with the pot odds just so good. Upper right-hand table, raise king-queen from middle position using a 21% range. And against that 15, I just got to call it on and hope he's doing it with a 10 and not an ace. He's doing it with queen 7 of spades. And I pick up a pretty nice pot just by calling those stupid small bets he was making all along. I get led into on 4 deuce deuce two-tone when I've got king queen with 2 overcards and that backdoor 4 flush draw with the king of clubs. So I'm going to go ahead and float that small bet. He comes along and checks. He checks the turn. It's a 7, a flush closing turn. I think I'd rather keep the pot small if I hit the 4 flush, so I'm not running into that big ace. I can certainly rep the ace here when that ace falls on the river as well, or otherwise try to bluff him off with some hands. He goes ahead and bets half pot. I think this is a spot where I'm going to go ahead and put in a bluff raise. If he's got ace X, it's never going to work. Oh, and he had the ace 5 of clubs, so he played that kind of weird. Led small with the draw, then checked the turn, then value bet half pot on the river, and just called with no thought of a 3-bet when I raised him up. Seems like a bit of a weak player to me with the way he played that. Get a 3x open blind on blind here from what has got it tagged as a recreational player because he's playing short. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet him with my ace-jack suited. 3-betting about 17, 18% in this spot. 9s plus suited broadways, ace-queen plus. Suited connectors 5-4 plus, then a few janky offsuit weak combos, and a few janky suited combos, some 2x, some 3x, some 4x, some 5x type hands all over the place. A smattering of that, and then some offsuit hands not quite good enough to call. A few offsuit aces, a few offsuit kings, a few offsuit connectors. I'm going to go ahead and range bet small on the Jack 10-6 rainbow flop. He check raises me. I'm going to go ahead and defend this in position for a call and plan to get this in on pretty much any turn. That turn's not the best turn in the world as Queen 9 got there, but it's also not that bad. He goes ahead and jams. I've got to call off with my top pair against Ace 2 that has absolutely no outs whatsoever, and I just pick up a gift of a stack from a player who I thought was a wreck, and he seems to confirm that by the way he played that particular hand. Lower left-hand table, raise deuces on the cutoff using a 28% range. Called by a recreational player in the big blind and a 6-5-3 rainbow board. I was going to go ahead and put in a small range bet. However, when he bets into me, even though it's small, I just don't have so many good turn or river cards for me. I mean, I do have a straight draw, but it's to the sucker end. I think I'm just going to go ahead and fold the deuces. I'm really not sure exactly where I'm going to find a ton of value by playing them. I could just be getting milked by small bets I have to call by some stupid 6x type hand or something like that. Blind on blind, upper left-hand table, 3x open. I will defend for a call with Jack 8 suited. Get an Ace 10-3 rainbow board. He bets small. Against the small bet, I think I can float there with some backdoor draws. Looking for a club, a 9. I guess a queen's a pretty good card too, to a lesser extent, like a hand like a king, card like a king. I don't really have any equity. I don't want this pot to bloat too much. If he checks to me, I'm not going to it wouldn't be a semi-bluff, but I'm not going to bluff with it. I think I'll just go ahead and check it back and bluff the river. Against the bet, I can just go ahead and fold. Get a 2.2x open on the button in the upper right-hand table. I've got Jack 10 offsuit. I can defend that for a call. I will check range to the eraser on the Jack 8-6 two-tone board. 3x open from the cutoff with King Deuce suited. That's a fold out of the big blind, especially with the overcaller. Upper right-hand table, he checks back. Turn is an offsuit queen. I'm going to go ahead and jab small with my second pair and my gut shot. He checks back. River is the 10. Puts a 4 straight out there. I guess the question is, do I sit there and try to get some thin value with a marginal 2 pair? I think I'm going to go ahead and bet it. Hand like Queen X, especially with a king. Could hero calm me down? I think I want to try to get some thinner value here. Get a min raise from a recreational player on the lower right-hand table from middle position. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet from the small blind with pocket 10s. And when I get raised, I'm just going to have to go ahead and fold that. I got overcalled by the fishy player in the big blind. The original raising player folds. I hit second set, Ace 10-6 two-tone. I'm going to go ahead and range bet that small and hopefully look to shovel a bunch more money in on later streets. Not the most ideal card in that it could make a, Queen Jack is now the nut straight. However, Havarius Ace X is still going to pay me off, and I've got a set. I can't be overthinking things like that. A bit roughly geometric here over the turn and river. He calls again. River is the 9. A decently clean run out. Straights are possible. Other than that, I feel like my hand is good. Going to go ahead and jam this all in. Try to get paid by ace king, ace queen, ace jack, or whatever, because he's a silly wreck. Upper left-hand table, raise the 8s under the gun using an 18% range. Lower left-hand table, middle position, raises 2.5x. He's been very tight, but I am still going to 3-bet him from the cutoff with ace-queen. Because he's been tight, I might treat him more like an under-the-gun raiser and raise him more like 8% instead of 10%. But I'm still going to be 3-betting the ace-queen. Upper left-hand table, I will check range to the in-position recreational player who called preflop on the ace-9-6 two-tone. He goes and bets 1/3. I'm going to check call with my 8s at least once. Continue checking on that jack turn. Lower left-hand table, I got, and he's jabbing again. I think that's that guy that was jabbing real small on that pocket king's hand on the ace-high board. Do I want to call here? I mean, he could be doing that with 9x is the problem. I think I'll just go ahead and fold that. Weird action here in that I got cold call on my 3-bet by a recreational player in the blinds who then leads for about 40% of pot. I think I can go ahead and float with my ace-queen high for at least 1 bet, looking to peel an ace or a queen on the turn. Also even have a smidge of showdown value if he's doing that with some stupid stuff like jack 10. Barrels again, I'll just lay it down, but he checks. I will take my free river card. Decent river for my hand having showdown value. Seven-5 offsuit in the blind battle, upper left-hand table. Probably a little bit too weak to go ahead and do anything with, but fold. Let me see here. He bets a decent size, but he's still reasonably overbluffed, even with somewhat of a size up. That bet check bet line is heavily overbluffed. That board staying low is heavily overbluffed. I'm going to go ahead and hero call this with ace high. And I'm running into 8's full, so much for my thought process there, but I stand behind the play. Lower right-hand table, the flop checks through. I'm going to start jabbing small at the turn with my trip aces. Blind battle, upper left-hand table, going to check range on the ace-queen-4 monotone flop with my kings. I do, in fact, have the king of hearts, so I've got a pretty decent hand here. He checks back. I'm going to go ahead and jab at that turn small. Upper left-hand table, I'm going to raise the 9s from middle position. River, I'm going to go ahead and try to get some more value from my trip aces and follow through against this recreational type player. And he folds out. I get squeezed in position with the 9s. I think I can go ahead and safely fold that against a passive player that's raising me here. Now the question is, do I try to get some hero value from the queen X, or do I try to check down for free? I think I want to go ahead and bet a little bit on the thinner mergy side here. Get hero called by a queen or a 9. Lower right-hand table, raise ace-deuce suited under the gun using an 18% range. Flop ace-king-10 two-tone. I've got the nut flush draw with my weak top pair. I'm going to go ahead and check range to the in-position player. Upper left-hand table, I'm going to open king-8 from the button using a 44% range. Lower right-hand table, the rec player checks back in position. I'm going to start jabbing at that turn small with my top pair and my nut flush draw. He calls. River, I make the nut flush. I think what I want to do here is go ahead and overbet. Oh, I really can't have an overbet bluff all-in size here because the ace-x is a showdown value hand, the ace of hearts without the flush. I'm going to use a smaller overbet size, try to get hero called by weaker flushes or something like that. And just try to get value from my super strong hand against a rec player, even though it's hard for him to have some hands. He will have some that'll pay me off big. Limp pot and lower right-hand table, flop checks around. I turn third pair. I'm going to start jabbing that at small. Upper left-hand table, open ace-jack under the gun, using an 18% range. Lower right-hand table, middle position opens 2.5x. I will 3-bet from the cutoff with my king-queen offsuit. 3-betting about 10% here, 9s plus suited broadways, ace-jack plus king-queen, and a couple wheel aces. Recreational player open jams 36 blinds on the button. I have to laugh. I have to fold my Jack-10 offsuit, but I get a kick out of the play, and hopefully we pick up a hand next time he does that. Upper left-hand table, I'll open ace-queen from the cutoff using a 28% range. Recreational player comes along from the small blind. We flop Jack-10-3 rainbow. Be a great spot to find a way to peel that king for the nut straight. He leads into me small about 1/3. I'll go ahead and call that. Upper right-hand table, I open blind down blind with queen 10 and check range on that Jack 5 deuce two-tone. He bets half of his stack for a full pot. I'll just go ahead and fold. He leads into me again, 10 into 57. I'm going to go ahead and just continue calling with my open ender and 2 overcards. River is that 10. He checks. I think I'll take my free showdown with ace high, especially on the paired board. And up against king six. Let me pick up a nice little pot for no real reason whatsoever other than he just decided to donk his king high small for no good reason. Get a 2.2x open from the button in the lower left-hand table. Can defend for a call with most of my suited combos, including 8-5 suited. I will check range to the big blind player on king 9-6 monotone. I suppose I do have a gut shot, but it's a gut shot to the low end of the straight on a monotone board of which I have none of the relevant suits. So it's really not all that great a hand. I think I can just go ahead and check fold it even for that smaller size. Pretty close. Maybe supposed to continue against that size, but folding is not going to hurt me too badly. Upper right-hand table, raise king jack from middle position using the 21% range. Blind on blind, lower right-hand table, face a 3x open. Can defend for a call with my king 8 suited. Probably towards the bottom of the calling range, but we can still defend for a call with that. Checks to me on the ace 6-9 two-tone flop. I will go ahead and stab for half pot. I do have a backdoor 4-flush diamond draw in the event he calls. On some backdoor straight draws as well, particularly on the 7. The 3 of spades, however, doesn't do a whole lot for me. I don't pick up too much equity, so I'm just going to go ahead and check back this hand, looking to either bluff or bluff raise the river. Interesting river card with the board pairing. The king high actually may have a smidge of showdown value here. I think I'm going to go ahead and take it as opposed to try to make him fold a pair. I'm going to take my showdown value with king high. Was never getting him to fold the ace x right there, so I'm happy about my decision to check back and not bluff. Lower right-hand table, blind on blind. I will open 9-6 suited using a 45% range. And calls, and I'm going to check range to the big blind on the 7-6-5 two-tone board. Get a 2.25x open from the button on the upper left-hand table. I will go ahead and 3-bet from the small blind with pocket 7s. 3-betting about 15% there. Got called by the big blind. The pre-flop raiser folds. We get a king 4-3 two-tone flop. I'll go ahead and range bet small. Blind battle lower right-hand table. We get a 5, a board pairing turn. I'm going to go ahead and check call that half pot bet again. River is a 3, completes a 4 straight, but the flush bricks out and the board stays low. Some merit to actually bluff catching here. He goes ahead and bets 55. I think that's almost certainly got to be a bluff catch. Yeah, we're going to bluff catch that. Oh, he had the 4x, so reasonable, I suppose. I don't know that it's great to semi-bluff the low end of that straight when you can have so much 8x in your range, but, you know, the river value bet is obviously something he should be doing. Upper left-hand table, I will raise 10-7 suited from the cutoff first in, using a 28% range. Upper right-hand table, I will raise 10-jack suited from middle position, using a 21% range. Big blind calls. I'll go ahead and range bet small after he checks on the King 10-5 two-tone board. We have a backdoor flush draw as well as my weak second pair. Big blind calls the small continuation bet. Turn is an offsuit 6. I'm going to be using overbet or check sizings on this particular spot, and middle pair is a great hand to check back when you're overbetting or checking, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. Not the best river, as now various straight draws either made a pair or the straight. He checks again, so I'm going to just go ahead and take my shot and hope I'm beating like ace high, 5x type hands. I'm going to it was up against a worse 10, or a better 10 rather, but that's all right. Didn't lose all that much there. Get a 3x open from the cutoff on the lower left-hand table. I'm in the big blind with 10-6 suited, and 10-6 suited is slightly too loose to be defending in that spot. You want to tell me it's because this guy's a weak recreational player and you want to get in there with more hands to take advantage of it. I don't really have a good argument against that. I think that's pretty reasonable. But I try not to get too far into some pre-flop deviations based on the idea that my post-flop skill will make up for it. But around the edges, it's certainly very reasonable to do. I wouldn't have a big problem if you called a few more hands, and 10-6 is right on the cusp right there. Lower right-hand table, open Queen Jack suited from under the gun, using an 18% range. Lower left-hand table, raise King 7 suited blind on blind, using a 45% range. Upper left-hand table, get a 2.5x open from the button. I will 3-bet the big blind with Queen Jack suited, using about a 14% range. Lower right-hand table, going to check range to the in-position player. We're multi-way with the rec in position and the big blind coming along as well. Lower left-hand table, I open King 8 offsuit on the button, using a 44% range. Upper left-hand table, the big blind or the button calls the 3-bet. I'll go ahead and range bet small on the Ace King 5 two-tone flop. I get called. I think this is a great barrel offhand in that I actually block the I block the best ace called on type hands, and I don't block the draws. Going to go ahead and put in a raise against that small lead when I made the flush in the lower right-hand table. Set him up to bet me roughly geometric growth of pot. Oh, and he moves all in, which is a shame. I don't get a chance to hit my gut shot, but he does save me from barreling off if he was actually strong. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and fold this now, but I think the plan was pretty reasonable. Min raise, blind on blind, lower right-hand table. I can defend that for a call with my Queen 10. Get a King Jack 3 two-tone flop. He checks to me. I'm going to go ahead and stab for half pot with my open-ended draw. He calls. Turn is the 9, makes the straight for me, but also closes the flush. I'm going to continue betting using a half pot bet or check as opposed to an overbet type size in this line because of that flush closing turn. It's a great equalizer equity-wise speaking. I also have a lot of one pair hands that want to bet for equity protection and value, some King X type hands that are scared of a fourth diamond peeling off. So I'm going to be betting a lot thinner here. I'm going to keep betting my straight, of course, as well. River is a board pairing card, the 9. I'm going to continue betting for value. I don't see any need to overbet here with a flush and full house all possible. I'm just going to go ahead and bet about 2/3, try to get called by King X, Jack X, whatever, 9X. Upper left-hand table, a recreational player limps the cutoff. I will isolate from the button with something like my cutoff open range, including ace-4 suited, about 28%. Upper right-hand table, I will open middle position with Queen-Jack offsuit, using about a 21% range. Lower left-hand table, I'll open King-Jack suited under the gun, using about an 18% range. The recreational player calls my isolation raise and checks to me on 6-5-3 rainbow. I'll go ahead and range bet small. The King-Jack hand gets called in position by a potential recreational player. I'm going to go ahead and check range to him. In the blind battle, when I made the straight, I got called by a weak king. That player checks back on the Jack 10-3 board. Turn is the 9, maybe giving me the nut straight. I'm going to go ahead and start jabbing at that pot small. He calls. Interesting river. The river is the 8, putting a 4 straight out there, of which I have the absolute stone cold nuts. So I'm going to go ahead and blast that for pot. He's got a Queen X. He might raise me very well. He might also get suspicious and bluff catch me. Something weaker. He quickly folds. Didn't have much of anything he was considering, I guess. But upper right-hand table, open King 10 suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. Get 3-bet by the button. Pretty large sizing, 3.5x, 4x type sizing. I think I can just go ahead and fold this for that size. He's also been pretty passive, 3-betting 1 time out of 23 opportunities so far. Get a min raise from the cutoff on the lower left-hand table. I'll defend my big blind for a call with ace-jack and check range to the razor on that flop. He goes ahead and bets about 75% on the 8-7-4 rainbow board. I'm just going to go ahead and check fold my ace high without any real meaningful backdoors, especially against that larger sizing. I had this guy tagged as a rec, but I don't really know that that's appropriate at this stage because he really hasn't shown any other rec tendencies. I think that's the guy who raised a questionable hand from the cutoff. Other than that, he hasn't shown any poor tendencies, and he might have been doing it to play with the fish who used to be there. Blind on blind, lower left-hand table. I'm going to open 9-8 offsuit using a 45% range. I'm going to check range on the Jack 10 deuce two-tone board. Upper right-hand table defended a cutoff 2.2x open with a button call from my big blind with King 5 suited. Some reason to go ahead. He's very aggressive post-flop, and he's using a small size. I think I can actually go ahead and put in a check-raise bluff here with, I've pretty much just got a backdoor flush draw, but I think it's worth trying. Blind battle, lower left-hand table. He checks back on a jab at that flush closing 3 turn. I do have the 8 of spades to bail me out in addition to my open-ended straight draw. My check raise got called. I didn't pick up any spade equity. I think I'm just going to go ahead and shut this down. River is the 8. I don't really know that I fold a jack or a 10 or better. I don't really think I get called by too much worse. I'm just going to try to show my 8 down. Interesting river that hits me there. I think I'm going to go ahead and try to get hero called by something like Queen Jack, and I'm just going to bet for a very thin value with the king. I don't want to check and call on this spot, but I think I might get a suspicious Queen Jack, Queen 10 type hand to call. Oh, and he made the straight with Jack 10, which will happen, but he didn't even raise me off it because he was scared of the backdoor flush. Seems silly, but guys do silly things, I suppose. If a recreational player limps the button on the upper left-hand table, I'm going to isolate up out of the small blind with a tight range, about 12%, including my ace-king offsuit. I was going to shut down the lower left-hand table, but I'm also at the stage where I'm about to quit my session. However, the table seems so promising, I don't want to quit quite yet, so I'm just going to keep them all around for a little while until they seem to start to break. Recreational player limp calls, and then I probably could check range on that king-queen-9 board, but I chose to bet small, and he called. Bad card for me, that 10. I'm just going to go ahead and check and just try to show down my ace-king top pair top kicker on the 4 straight. In a 4 straight river, the fish aren't particularly bluffy. This probably is a spot where I'm supposed to be folding. Yeah, I think we can let this one go. I should probably be checking range on that flop though, and not range betting that flop. I think that was a mistake. Get a 3x open from the cutoff on the lower left-hand table. King Jack is certainly a defend under normal circumstances. However, with that overcaller in there, I'm supposed to be getting a bit tighter. The overcaller, however, is fishy too. I think I can still go ahead and call that. Just want to be cautious, especially against the reg, especially with, if I make some one pair type hands. And against that, about 60% continuation bet on the ace-9-5 two-tone board. I've got king-high, no back doors. That's a multi-way pot. Pretty large sizing for a multi-way pot. I'm just going to go ahead and check fold my king-jack. Get a min raise from the button on the lower right-hand table. I'm in the big blind with jack-10. Can certainly defend that for a call, and I will check range on the flop to the raiser. We have second pair on the ace-jack-7 two-tone board. He goes ahead and bets about half pot. I will check call with my middle pair and check the turn. Decent turn for me, gives me a gut shot to go with my second pair. He checks. River is a board pairing card, the 7. I don't know if there's a ton of value in betting this, but I can certainly check to him and let him stab with all his air. He could also check back some weak ace-x to under-rep them and value bet the river or to bluff catch the river. So I'm not automatically good there, but I think I played it reasonably. He had queen-8 of spades, so he checked back when he made the pair, even though he had the flush draw, which I think is reasonable, and he just tried to show down his 8 and not try to bluff me off a better hand. I think his moves were smart there. I like the way he played that. Upper right-hand table, my under-the-gun open got called by a recreational player in the small blind. He checks to me and will range bet the ace-5 deuce two-tone board. I have ace-4 for that gut shot to the wheel. And he leads into me on the turn, which is interesting. Double flush draw turn. My hand's not all that strong. The 6 I actually don't like because the better straights are now possible, and if I do hit my 3, it's a 4 straight. I think I can go ahead and fold that. Kind of weak against that small size, even. I'm just not sure I get enough value if I hit my gut shot. I've got to worry about, the double flush draw out there, making some of my gut shot straights or my overcard aces, run into flushes on half those cards that hit. The big thing to me, though, is I just don't think I'm going to get enough value from my straight because it's not that disguised with that turn card out there. Plus, better straights are possible. So I think it's better to get out there a bit early. I'm not sure if I can really bluff that guy in that weird line on the river when he starts donking the turn. If he then checks the river and I whiff, I'm just not quite sure what to do. So I err on the side of caution and fold if it's close and I'm not really sure. Upper left-hand table, button opens 2.5x. A recreational player calls in the small blind. I will close the action with King 10 offsuit in the big blind with a call. It led into for pot by the rec on 875. I'll just quickly fold my King 10 high. Lower left-hand table, a short stack says presume recreational player opens 3x blind on blind. It's a very easy defend for a call with ace 10 offsuit. He bets half pot into me on the 10-8 deuce two-tone flop. I'm just going to go ahead and continue along for the call. Upper left-hand table, rec limps the cutoff. I will isolate from the button with something like my cutoff range, including ace 7 suited. Lower left-hand table, the short stack continues betting half pot on that 9. It does make some straights, but I still have top pair, top kicker. Don't feel too bad about that situation. River is a 6, puts a 4 straight out there. I think I'm content to just check back my ace 10. This is against queen 9, so he barreled his second pair. Upper left-hand table, the rec limps calls. I will go ahead and range bet small with my ace 7 of clubs on the king 3-4 rainbow flop. Turn is the king of clubs. I have the nut flush draw. He could probably have some weak non-king X type hands. I don't know. I'm never getting him to fold a king is the thing. I think I can just go ahead and check this back and evaluate the river. There's certainly some merit to overbetting that, but against a rec with a pot that's kind of bloating, he's going to have a lot of king X in his range. I think it may be a bit more prudent to check it back. He goes and he bets half pot into me. I'm pretty sure I can bluff raise this. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put in the bluff raise. Could fold out non-kings very easily here. I can have some weak king X that I checked back as well, so it's not completely naked. There is some justification, even though these guys don't really know that one way or the other. But there is a semblance of balance to when I'm doing that. Upper left-hand table, I'll raise ace-jack from the cutoff using a 28% range. It's called by a reg-type player on the button. Lower right-hand table, blind on blind against a shorter stacked rec. I'm going to open my king 7 suited using about a 45% range. Get a cutoff open for 2.2x on the upper right-hand table. I'm going to go ahead and call with pocket 8s against that open and the recreational player on the button's call. I'm going to check range multi-way with an in-position player on the upper left-hand table with that 9-7-8 rainbow board. Upper right-hand table, the flop checks through. It's now 9-7-3-10 with the flush draw. I'm going to go ahead and jab at that pot small with my 8s. Not necessarily good here, but it denies some equity. I just went and actually banged off that 6. Ideal card for me is I have the 4 straight. Since we're multi-way, I'm going to use the small bet size again. We get a very small bet, about a quarter pot, and then the call. I've got that gut shot and ace high. I'm going to go ahead and check call. And I'm going to bank off my gut shot because I run so pure. Lower left-hand table, I raised aces first in from middle position. Got an in-position caller. He checks back after I check range on king, king, queen, two-tone. Going to go ahead and start betting small on the turn. Get led into for about a third of pot by the out of position player. I've got the 4 straight. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small raise for value with my jack for the 4 straight. and got called down. Quickly called down and quickly mucked. I wonder if he had a set. Oh, he had the low end. He had king six of spades, so he didn't need to be in that pot. But he was, and I appreciate him paying me off my river raise. Upper left-hand table, going to open queens from middle position using a 21% range. Get 3-bet by an in-position player. It's his first 3-bet in 19 opportunities. That said, he's playing fairly reggy type stats. We also get this overcaller behind here, who the recreational player, which makes me want to even 4-bet even more because there's more money in that pot to pick up when it gets through. Let me see. I can go ahead and pop him up to about 145. Do this with queens plus ace king. I could have ace queen offsuit in there as a bluff. I might not really have bluffs in my range in this particular spot, given that this guy's been more passive and this guy's short and got some money in there already. I'm going to call off, hope it's not aces, even though it might be. Oh, it's kings, but I just really am not in the business of folding queens pre-flop here without some real good reason. Plus, I run so pure, I'm going to spike my queen on the river anyway and win the pot, so who really cares, right? Lower left-hand table, open Jack 6 suited on the button using a 44% range. Get 3-bet by a recreational player, and I'll just go ahead and fold. Upper right-hand table, a tight recreational player opens 3x from the button. Even though he's been super tight, I will still call with ace-10. Upper left-hand table, I'm going to go ahead and isolate up that limper with my pocket tens out of the blinds, using about a 12% range here. Recreational player limping the button just needs to be isolated with a hand like pocket tens, no question about it. Upper right-hand table, get a continuation bet of 2/3 on king 7-3 two-tone. I've got no pair, no real relevant backdoor draws. I still have a backdoor draw to Broadway, but that's pretty weak against a tight passive player raising pre-flop then using a larger flop size. I'm just going to get out of the way and not even think twice. He's been so tight, you might even be able to make some arguments for folding that hand pre-flop, as weak as it may sound. Lower right-hand table, a raise under the gun with eights using an 18% range. Got called by the big blind who checks the flop. I'm going to go ahead and range bet small on the ace-queen-6 rainbow flop. Turn is a 5, doesn't do a lot for me. I could be overbetting or checking and be overbetting my sets, except for the aces. I'd probably trap with those, but overbetting the other ones, overbetting ace-queen, ace-queen, ace-6, ace-5 suited. Probably my ace-king, maybe my ace-jack is right around the cutoff, something like that. And then I would be looking to blast some of my Broadway gut shot draws as bluffs. Pocket 8 should just be in the check back range, looking to get a cheap showdown. He checks again. I'll take my showdown with the 8s. Upper left-hand table, the recreational player limps under the gun. I'll isolate him from middle position with ace-jack using something like my under-the-gun open range, about 18%. He limp re-raises me. Perhaps he is just sick of my shit. It's hard to say. A 3.5x 3-bet, though, is going to be pretty hard to fold to. I think I need to call that with ace-jack, even though this is a bit dicey already. Goes and bets half pot. I've got no real piece. I can just go ahead and safely fold at that point. Probably defending that limp re-raise with, I don't know, pocket pairs, maybe down to about sixes, and then, you know, ace king I would just jam back in. I think queens and kings I would just jam back in. I could trap with aces. I could call with pocket pairs, maybe, you know, jacks through about sixes or so. And I could also call with some suited Broadway cards like ace queen, ace jack, king queen, king jack, queen jack, something like that. Lower right-hand table, a rec limps middle position. I will isolate from the blinds with about a 12% range, including queen jack suited. We get an overcall from the big blind, and the limper jams all in, and I'm forced to fold. Lower left-hand table, I'll fold ace-3 offsuit from the button. I'll fold a few raggy offsuit aces, some of the lowest ones. Won't quite open them all, but it's pretty close, and opening them certainly isn't all that big a mistake, if it is a mistake at all. Lower right-hand table, open ace-queen suited under the gun, using an 18% range. Upper right-hand table, a recreational player limps blind on blind. I've got 8-7 offsuit. I usually isolate, or I don't really isolate, but raise up these blind on blind limpers with something like my button raise first in range. And 8-7 offsuit's right on the cusp, just outside of what I typically open. So I'll check that in instead. He checks to me on ace-4-4 two-tone. I'll go ahead and stab for the minimum. See if I can't pick up the pot nice and cheap. It does not work. He check calls. Turn is an offsuit 3. I'm just going to go ahead and check back my 8 high. Plan to bluff the river if he doesn't do anything that talks me out of it. He goes ahead and bets 2/3. If he bet a bit smaller, I might try to bluff raise. I'm not going to try to bluff raise a recreational player in this line, especially off of that sizing. So just go ahead and fold my 8 high. Lower right-hand table, I'll raise Queen 9 offsuit first in on the button, using a 44% range. Get called by the big blind. He checks to me on the Jack 9-7 two-tone flop. I will go ahead and put in a small range bet. I thought he might check raise me. He's aggressive, and that's the kind of board where you want to have a lot of hands that could do it. Well, he uses a pretty healthy size, too, so I'm not going to get cute and start floating with my marginal second pair that doesn't really have all that many great cards to improve on. I think he's punishing me for range betting a board when you're not really supposed to range bet. Upper left-hand table, the 2.5x open from middle position. I'll just go ahead and fold my king 9 in the big blind, even more so with that small blind caller. Upper right-hand table, recreational player limps middle position. I will isolate from the cutoff with something like my middle position open range, including ace-jack suited, about 21%. He limp calls. We get a king, queen, jack rainbow flop. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet on this board. He quickly check calls. River is the 8 of clubs. I think I just want to be playing overbet or check. If I've got a set, or ace-10, hand like king, queen, I'm going to try to get the money in. It's more marginal one pair hands, especially third pair. I'm content to just check back and get towards showdown cheaper. Now he's going to check again. I'll gladly take my showdown here. Was thinking he might have some ace-high type gut shot hands he could turn into bluffs. He just opted not to bluff with it, which he probably should have, but chose not to. Didn't put me to any sort of decision. Not that I was necessarily folding my pair on the river, but I obviously can't fold my pair if he checks. Recreational player limps the cutoff, upper left-hand table. I'll raise him from the button using something like my cutoff raise first in range, about 28%. Got queen 9 suited in this particular instance. He limp calls. I flop top pair on the 9-6 deuce rainbow flop. He checks to me. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. He calls. Great turn card. Queen giving me top 2. Now I'm thinking, how do I get the stacks in the middle? Go a little less than pot. Set me up for a little bit less than pot jam on the river. That roughly geometric. He jams all in. I'll quickly call with my top 2. He made top pair with the queen jack, but I've got top 2, so my hand is good. We pick up a small stack. Lower right-hand table, I defended the 3x blind on blind open with ace-jack offsuit. He checks to me on the king 8-4. Rainbow flop, he check calls. Turn is the 10 of hearts. I'd be overbetting or checking this particular spot. I do have a gut shot, but I've got some lower gut shots out there as well. 5, 6, 6, 7 type hands. Jack 9, 9 sevens are open enders. I don't want to bet all my gut shots. I'm going to bet the gut shots that broadly, if I'm looking to split them in half, I'm going to bet the gut shots that block the flush draw here. I don't have the heart in my hand, so I will check back my ace jack. You get a 3-bet after I open the cutoff out of the big blind in the upper left-hand table. I can defend that with pocket eights. Do I? I think I'll take my short on with ace jack. It's pretty close, but I think it's reasonable to do there. I get an ace 10-3 two-tone flop in that 3-bet pot. He bets large on the flop. I even have the 8 of hearts in my hand. I think that's a very easy fold. Lower left-hand table, the cutoff limps, I will isolate with ace-8 suited from the button using something like my cutoff range, about 28%. And he limp calls. I get an ace-4 deuce two-tone flop. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. Upper left table seems to be busted out now, just reg type players. However, the other tables all seem pretty good, so I'm not going anywhere quite yet. Although I think I can probably leave that table. I think I've milked that one for all that it's worth. Upper right-hand table, open queen 10 from the cutoff using the 28% range. Get a 3x open from middle position, lower left-hand table. A recreational player calls in both the cutoff and in the small blind. I will be squeezing from the big blind with aces. Weird action with the guy over jamming and this guy showing up there, coming along for the call. I'm going to go ahead and jab at this pot. Actually, I'm going to continue checking with the aces, especially with that ace of clubs under rep it. I'm really worried about having to run into trip kings somehow. There's no incentive for me to bluff in this given spot with the dry side pot. I will try to get some value in on that river, though. And try to get some thin value with my rivered second pair on the upper right-hand table. Lower right-hand table, I raised King 8 on the button using a 44% range. We're multi-way on the flops, so I will not be range betting. And I did turn second pair, but the ace-high board, a flush closing turn. I've got a weak second pair. I think I can just go ahead and fold that when the guy bets 20 out of the small blind into 35 and 2 players. Lower left-hand table, raise King 8 on the button using a 44% range. Big blind calls, got an 8-6 deuce two-tone flop. I'll be range betting if he checks to me. We have a pretty strong top pair. Check calls. Turn is the 9. That's going to be an overbet or check texture for me here. The second pair is going to be the kind of hand I just want to check back. Now he bets half pot. He could have rivered some kind of 9x hand or something like that, but for half pot with the pot odds of being given, I've just got no choice but to go ahead and call that down. Yeah, he got there with his queen jack overcards, which I suppose it's reasonable to check call those against a small bet in the loose formation. Lower left-hand table, open fives from the cutoff using the 28% range. And the recreational players have busted out on 2 of my tables, and I'm already here a lot longer than I planned to be, so I think I'm going to go ahead and cut the session at this point. Still a couple guys at the 1 table and a suspected short stack at the new table, but I think it's time. There's always another poker game. I don't need to play forever. Lower left-hand table, raise kings from the cutoff using a 28% range. Lower right-hand table, blind on blind, I will open 6-4 suited against the recreational player. Quickly calls, I will check range to him on the ace-9-6 two-tone board. Lower left-hand table with the kings, I got called by both blinds, and I get an ace-9-6 rainbow flop, so I'm just going to go ahead and check back my pocket kings. No need to range bet on a board like that, multi-way. No need to range bet really anything multi-way. Recreational player bets 2/3 into me. I'm just going to go ahead and fold my bottom pair, no backdoors against that sizing. Could maybe check call it, but probably also not really necessary. And he goes ahead and bets 2/3. I can have some weak ace-x type hands that check back the flop here as well. I don't really know that this guy is terribly aggressive where I should be calling him down. That's a pretty small bet, 22 into 35. I can call that. River is that heart, which should slow him down a lot of his thinner value bets. Probably not going to be betting too much weak ace-x at that point. And the most obvious draw, the flush draw hit. I'll check back my kings. It was against a weak ace, but I'm okay calling that one turn bet just to make sure. Upper left-hand table, blind on blind, I'll raise ace-4 using a 45% range. This guy's actually kind of fishy to be defending the small blind with a call with ace-3 offsuit. Upper left-hand table, I'll raise 10-7 suited from the button using a 44% range. And it looks like that's about it. Thank you very much for watching the video. Until next time, this is Charlie Murphy signing off.